Today we're here with Cam White from Easy Street Mortgages. Really as a first part of this new segment we're doing called Property Talk, and we're just wanting to give potential homeowners or people looking at buying property in the next few months a bit of an update and a bit of an insight to the industry, what's going on. So I wanted to speak with Cam today to say thanks for coming along today, Cam. Hopefully
Thanks,
we can. Thank you. Hopefully we can get through some short sort of questions, help people feel out what sort of is going on with, I guess, the lending market and securing finance at the moment.
Totally.
Yeah, because obviously there's a bit of confusion around that. A lot of people don't know until they go through the process what to expect.
Absolutely.
And so that's why you're a bit of the expert in that, so I thought I'd get you in.
Yeah, appreciate it.
I guess really I just wanted to find out, and hopefully this helps people as well, your opinion on what's sort of happening in the lending market at the moment. I know we've post-COVID lockdown a while ago, we're sort of back in there again, but I know there's been some changes with the lenders recently.
Yeah.
What have you sort of seen change in the past few months, I guess?
So, look, sort of big headline changes. The most obvious thing is removal of LVR restrictions from the Reserve Bank. Now, to be honest, they haven't made a dramatic difference to lenders and water purchasers with regard to their deposit situation.
So LVRs, if you just explain those briefly.
Deposit.
So that's your deposit.
Look, in most cases, if you set the general rule as though you're going to need 20% deposit, that's the key thing. There are certain circumstances though in which we can do 10. But look, which is disappointing. As brokers, we really like to see more of that sort of over 80% or less than 20% deposit. It's a very big market. It's a very massive market. There's a lot of people there that just really struggle to get to that 20%.
It does make a big difference, doesn't it? It's a lot harder.
It's dramatic.
Yeah.
But certainly before COVID to now, things are probably tighter within that sort of lower deposit. So you think the banks are favouring this 20% deposit criteria due to this wanting a bit more security? Yeah, and it's hard to know whether the removal of the LVR restrictions actually made really any difference. I don't know. Personally, I think they probably did a little bit.
More investors in the market now, perhaps?
Correct, yeah, more investors. So certainly deposit. Certainly if you've got less than 20% deposit and you're approaching a property that you'd like to buy, if you're not approaching that with pre-approval, that's probably a silly idea. Second to that is just turnaround times, really. Lenders are hideously unprepared at the moment. Pretty much all of them expected a very significant reduction in the
applications, I guess.
So
amount of people looking to buy, they thought that might change?
Absolutely. Thought it would see a massive slump, but instead we've had an increase. So we've even got certain lenders that put staff on leave, did system updates and changes and things like that. Now what we're left with is lenders that would be very lucky if we can sort of get anything less than 5 to 10 working days. Normally around that 10 days.
But it's tight, it's a bit of time with the lender, is it, to get approvals back?
Yeah. So if you've got 10% deposit, you're going to need a registered valuation, and if you've got a 10-day
finance
period on your contract, and it's only taking 10 days to get the finance from the bank, add another 5 days for your registered valuation. It's not enough.
Timelines are getting pushed out because what you're saying is the banks aren't really prepared for the influx of the property market. The appetite's pretty big out there at the moment, and I don't think the need for property's changed.
Yeah.
So it seems like the banks perhaps thinking they were going to see a bit of a slump in the amount of people looking at buying, that now not quite staffed maybe like they should be. The response times are a bit delayed.
It's also just too that I think as lenders have become a little bit more precious about certain income streams and certain industries.
They're taking a bit longer to look over.
They are.
Yeah, I always say to people, they're looking at placing an offer in a couple of days or the week ahead where the deadline is. Get in front of the broker now, or your lender now. because the one thing that will secure you a property are short finance term dates or short due diligence periods. As Cam's saying, it can be 10 to 15 days to secure finance for a lender at the moment. You really want to shorten that down to be a more desirable purchaser.
That's right.
And so if you can have that pre-approval locked in ahead of time, that's really going to give you an upper foot also on your own situation, but knowing what your capacity is and actually help hopefully securing that dream home you really do want.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. I guess we sort of covered that briefly. Deposit, you're saying the banks are really favouring that sort of 20% at the moment as a safety net for them because they've got risk involved.
Correct.
But perhaps in some cases, where would you see where they might look? Is there certain property types where they might be more flexible? Is there certain lenders that might be more flexible towards that?
So certainly at the moment it's existing property that is the preference over new builds because of the fact that the approval for a new build it has to be so much longer than for an existing home. So
most existing homes will settle in 2 to 3 months.
Exactly. Whereas a new build is sort of 12 months. And with the level of uncertainty at a lender at the moment around what is going to happen to our economy over the next sort of 12 months or so, they're certainly requiring more deposit than ever before for a new build or a turnkey property.
Which previous to, I guess, COVID, it would have been around 10% roughly.
Exactly, even 5% for a turnkey. We were doing lots of those with the ASBs and the BNZs. Now those same lenders are requiring 15 to 25% deposit for a new build.
Wow.
So, it's
a big jump. Everyone's situation is going to be different. Whether you're self-employed, you've started a new job, you might have property you already own that can be used as security or leverage. So everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different, but you need to know what, I guess, your options are more than anything.
Yeah, totally.
And that's, I guess, coming back to having that pre-approval in place. It's not only going to help you better understand, what your options are, but put you ahead of the line of perhaps other people in the marketplace if you're looking at purchasing. And I guess one of the other questions, I deal with a lot of people that still like to, or by default, work with their bank, directly, say the bank that they've had since, day one when they were 5 years old, they're the first bank, whoever that may be, they'll still sort of fall back on that, that's who they like to use. But I've sort of seen that can be a little bit more difficult for people for certain reasons, but perhaps maybe you could give me a bit of a couple of examples as to, what are the benefits of working with a mortgage broker, someone like yourself, as opposed to a conventional bank that you've had a 20-year relationship with maybe.
So, look, the first thing is that it doesn't cost anything. So that's the main thing. So we charge the banks directly. We don't charge a client for our time. And then the second thing is policy. Most consumers don't walk into the bank knowing the outline of that lender's policy and whether they fit with inside that policy or not. It doesn't matter whether you are whether that's your bank or not your bank. It makes no difference.
And the policy's not lenient, is it? It's not going to be.
So that could be whether you might be self-employed. You might have less than 20% deposit. You might be looking to build. So depending on where your income comes from. What your deposit is, what type of property you're looking for. The policy is dramatically different between different lenders. So, if we were to deal with 10 different clients, 8 of those clients would likely not be at the bank that actually we place the business with due to policy just not being the right fit.
So they would perhaps not fit into their current bank's policy model, and they probably won't get the support or the lending they need.
More often than not, that's
so you see people having to move to get what they need or what suits them.
So examples of that could be you might just have 1 year's financials. You take those 1 year's financials to your existing bank. They're going to say, hey, we need 2 years financials.
That's their policy. There's no arguing about that.
Look, we know that certain lenders are comfortable with the 1 year's financials. Or, as I say, it might just be the level of deposit on the basis of the build or the purchase that you're looking for, and how we structure that. So again, that is different for every single lender. There's very different policies around that.
And will you find sometimes that when the banks are aware that obviously they're dealing with the broker, they assume that there's potentially other banks in play.
Correct.
Do you see better interest rates as a result?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see better interest rates than perhaps what the advertised
Correct.
interest rate
That's
is?
right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean that's incentive enough. Everybody wants
Exactly.
a great rate, don't they?
Yeah. It's also things like cash backs and stuff like that too. So depending on your deposit level and other factors, we're going to sort of show you the bank that's going to cost you the least. And again, most of the time, that's not the bank that you're with.
Interesting. Yeah, because I think people assume the bank that they're with is going to look after them, but I'm sure it gets taken for granted.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. So that's great. Well, thanks very much for coming through, Cam.
Hey, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's been really good. And thanks for watching. We'll see you later.